It is 5:30. I'll call our meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the USD 305 Board of Education. Thanks to everyone who's here with us today in person and those watching via our streaming avenues online. Today is October 13th, 2020. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do have one addendum to the agenda tonight. There's an addendum to the personnel report that was provided. I would take a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Ian?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. In a second? Thank you, Emma. I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Item 4 on our agenda this evening is approval of the consent agenda items, which include minutes of the September 8th, 2020 regular meeting, minutes of the September 22nd, 2020 special meeting, minutes of the October 7th, 2020 special meeting, the personnel report and its amendment, the financial reports, including September bills list, August treasurer's report, August investment report, August journal entries, and approval of the following encumbrance listings. To New Directions in the amount of $24,931.20 for the annual renewal of the Employee Assistance Plan. To Dell for the purchase of laptops for CKCIE in the amount of $68,097.50. To CDWG in the amount of $55,930 for 35 swivel starter kits. To Apple for the purchase of iPads in the amount of $39,400. To Building Control Services, Inc. in the amount of $20,952 for the purchase of a replacement modular equipment controller panel at Central High School. To Kansas City Audiovisual in the amount of $84,075 for video conferencing equipment, and to Optive in the amount of $132,403.22 for the purchase of traffic manager software and support, and approval of the South Middle School fundraising activity. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Emma Doherty, I make a motion we do the approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. In a second?
Dana Casso, I second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Item 5 on our agenda this evening, public forum. If there's anyone here that wishes to speak to the board about an item not on our agenda, this is the time. Seeing none, moving on, item 6A, review of the fiscal year 20 audit with Barney and Associates. Hi there, Eric. Is that right? Yeah. Very good. Thanks for being here. Yes, that would be great.
It's way down there.
Oh, green probably means on? Okay. It was red. Okay. So yes, my name's Eric Kentz, Barney and Associates. Thank you for letting me be here to present tonight. And we've got the results of your 1920 school year annual audit. I believe all of you have already received copies of the reports. So I'm going to go through some of the highlights of the reports for you. Where I'm going to start is just a smaller 2 or 3 page document here. We call this the communications letter. And this is designed to be a summary of the results of the audit intended for you as a governing body and for your management to kind of get the feedback. I'll preface you a little bit and tell you that the results are pretty clean, kind of boring. But I'll hit the highlights and kind of key you in on some of the areas that are important to be aware of. First page, always good to make sure we understand responsibilities when it comes to the annual audit. As your auditor, my job is to come in and help give an opinion that is attached to your financial statements, the auditor's opinion, and that's in my auditor's report. I do help prepare the district's financial statements, but ultimately your district management, they get to make final decisions about all the information that's included in your financial statements and disclosures. So even though I give technical advice and things, they get to make the final decisions, and I give that opinion. At the bottom of page 1, we talk about accounting policies. You use the state basis of accounting, which is called the regulatory basis of accounting. You may have heard the term KMAG, or Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. And you may have also heard the term generally accepted accounting principles. And so what you use is called the state basis of accounting, and it's not generally accepted accounting principles. And if you're familiar with it, at the first meeting of your school year, as part of that list of things that you approve, there's a waiver of the requirement to do generally accepted accounting principles. And that's something that a lot of school districts do. Moving on to page 2, we've got an area called significant accounting estimates. And we point out that for the most part, estimates really aren't a big part of your financial statements. And the reason we point out estimates in our letter is not that you need to be alarmed by estimates. It's that you should be aware anytime estimates are involved, because that could mean that your management is making judgments that you should be aware of. But we review the estimates just to see if we think they're reasonable. And, we did that, and we didn't think that there was anything in there that we thought we needed to especially bring to your attention. So you do have some things that are considered estimates, like encumbrances, which are like the open purchase orders at year end. Those are considered encumbrances because sometimes they don't liquidate after year end at exactly what they were encumbered for. Sometimes they liquidate for something a little bit different. But we didn't see anything that we thought was terribly, interesting or relevant or significant to bring to your attention. Middle of the page, we point out, again, something else just to be aware of, not to be alarmed by. But note G talks about pension plans. And your district participates in the statewide CAPERS plan like most school districts do. Probably something that you don't really think about too much because you don't really have to finance it. The state carries the obligation for that. But it is something that the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Board wants all municipals to be including in their financial statements because they want boards to be aware of the information. Starting about 5 years ago, the state pension, CAPERS, they started putting out a report that gave information about the funded position of the state plan. And if you've heard the term net pension liability, if you've heard that term, what they're talking about is the overall commitments of the state pension plan relative to what the assets are of the plan. And that's all assessed on an actuarial basis, and they issue a report each year. That information is more fully detailed and disclosed in Note G of your financial statements. The next two sections of the report are always good when they're really short. We did not identify any actual or suspected fraud as we conducted the audit. And it's really hard to talk with the mask on. We encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management as we moved through the audit process. And that's probably a good spot to stop and say thank you to Crystal and thank you to Lisa and the rest of the business office. Especially this year, everybody knows what's going on this year, pandemic. There's just a lot of things going on to keep up with and keep track of. And if you know anything about auditors, we are a very needy people. We show up and we just constantly ask for things. And despite the fact that they were in a pandemic and despite the fact that we are needy, you're still here today receiving your audit report on time. So that's very, very good. At the bottom of page 2, The key sentences are the last sentence of each paragraph. Essentially, we didn't identify any adjustments to your financial statements. And so that's important because the financial statements that we prepared as audited financial statements, that information is not different than what you received throughout the 1920 school year. It's also not different than what you used to prepare your 2021 budget. And then that's also important because once you receive this audit report, it does get used by the state to, at the end of this school year, in the determination of the final legal maximum general fund and supplemental general fund budget. So no changes to your numbers, and that's consistent with probably many years, but the 6 years that we have audited with you for sure, very long time. So again, things are just working as normal, even in a pandemic setting. And then the last page, there's really not anything to mention there. It's just a lot of language that we put in there. It's got disclosures in the negative, things that just didn't happen or didn't exist. Any questions about this letter or the results? Okay. Now this document, even though it's bigger and thicker, and this is the other document, it doesn't take as long to go through. I'm going to move to page 1. Page 1 is the auditor's report. There's a lot on this. I mean, it's a 3-page auditor's report, and there's a lot of language on it. Bottom of page 1, it says basis for adverse opinion. That sounds bad, but really what we're just telling people, you guys don't use generally accepted accounting principles. Remember, you had that waiver. You use the state's basis of accounting. So if we flip to page 2, there's a second opinion that says opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. And that's where we're telling everybody that with respect to what the state requires, you have a clean opinion. Okay? And then the Cliff's Notes version of the rest of this, a lot of information, a lot of long-winded paragraphs there. Essentially, there's a lot of extra information that follows the notes to your financial statements. It isn't necessarily required, or it's not part of the scope of the audit, but the regulatory basis does require it to be in your financial statements. And as part of your audit, we did review that information in relation to what we have audited. So we verified that information as part of our audit as well. And then the last thing I'll point out, you may not realize, but in the very back of this document, you got to go way back. It's like page, and I'm looking at printed page 48. Okay. There's just a few more reports to make sure you're aware of. And these reports relate to the federal award part of your annual audit. So the first is called a report that is in relation to government auditing standards. We have to sort of go on the record as your auditors and say, did we find any internal control issues? We just have to go on the record. And you'll find where we did that. It's on page 49, which is the second page of the report. It's the last sentence. Well, I guess I lied. It says the results of our test disclose no instances of noncompliance or other matters that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. And then if you flip back, that's where it talks about the internal controls. I flip-flopped. On page 48, it's the second to last sentence of the last paragraph. It says, given these limitations during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. So those are the two key sentences out of those reports. Basically, no issues. If you flip to page 50, this report is where we say the results of testing your federal award program. And for the 1920 school year, the program that got tested was Title I and Head Start. Those were the two programs that got selected for testing. And if you look at the bottom of page 50, it says, in our opinion, the district complied in all material respects with the types of compliance requirements referred to above that have a direct and material effect on your major federal programs for the 2020 year. So again, that's a clean opinion, no issues. And that's really about all I need to make sure that you're aware of with respect to your audited financial statement document. Lastly, I guess I'll point out that the plan forward, after you've received these reports, they do become filed with the Federal Audit Clearinghouse because there's a federal award audit in play. And then once they are accepted by the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, they do become a matter of public record. So anybody could download these. They also do get submitted to the State Division of Accounts and Reports. So they can be accessed there as well. But that's about it.
Very good. Any questions for Eric?
Not as much a question as a comment. As someone who works in finance, I appreciate your good humor and clear presentation. That's nicely done. And I'm not at all surprised to have a clean audit, given my high regard for Ms. Peters and all of her colleagues. But I'm curious, do you all represent other school districts as well? I don't even have to name any, but do you represent other school districts?
We do. We work with about 25 school districts.
And I'm curious, is it unusual to have something as clean as this? Or is this something that we should be touting with great pride? Or is this common amongst all those school districts?
I would say, for the most part, school districts, in terms of the municipal world, which counts cities, counties, all the rest, school districts tend to have a higher pedigree than most. And I think that's because of what KSDE has done, and probably what KASB has done for you guys. In doing all the training and the education and the common budgeting documents and all that stuff. I think that has created a system and a structure of uniformity and common knowledge and all the rest that has been very beneficial in that regard. Those things don't exist in the other municipal environments, and so we tend to experience a little bit more in terms of like audit findings and things like that. So.
Very good. I appreciate those thoughts. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from our group here? Thank you so much.
Yep.
Would entertain a motion from a board member for approval of the fiscal year 20 audit as presented? Jim.
Mr. President, I move that we receive the fiscal year 20 audit from Barney and Associates.
Thank you. And is there a second? Thank you. The motion and the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on our agenda, item 6B, board policy review, second reading with Aaron Wright.
Good evening. We're here again, as you mentioned, for the second reading of amendments to board policy for this school year. Just as a short reminder, we do this at least once or twice a year. We receive recommended policy changes from either staff internally or through the KASB policy service. The district officers look through these policies, determine and make recommendations. Based on those amendments, then I review them and try to put them together as a whole for you. We went through them at our last board meeting, which was on September 22nd. And then based on that discussion that evening, we created some additional amendments, and all of those are compiled here for you this evening. for the final reading. I want to first start by saying there were 3 major drivers of change this policy review season. I'm sorry, my mask is like moving into my mouth as I talk, so. Most of the policies were changed due to one of these 3 drivers, the first of which was we have made adjustments to the structure in the administrative level at the district office. The executive director of Student Support Services we've changed that title to the executive director of educational programs. Many of the policies you see here this evening were amended for that reason. Also, over the summer, Title IX regulations changed and requirements related to sexual harassment and investigation of sex discrimination and harassment. There were some significant changes that have made in turn, some recommended significant changes to many of our sexual harassment and discrimination and complaint policies. The third was recommendations adopted by KASB related to the vaping task force in Kansas. Many of the policies that you'll see here tonight were changed because of those recommended changes. So to go through the first, just sort of in order here. You all made recommended amendments to the preface, making changes based on our current practice and policy, how we handle the policies, and updating some language. Were there any concerns on these changes to this policy before I move forward? Okay. My goodness, this is hard without a little mouse. Okay. KASB recommended a change to policy BCBJ. However, the only change we put in place to this policy was changing the word coordinator to director, because she is, in fact, her position is director. Board superintendent relations, we ended up not changing this policy. The suggested change was related to punctuation. That had already been removed from our version, so no change was recommended. Policy CN, this was made some tweaks based upon the Attorney General's office, made some recommendations of modified placement of language in our policy, as you can see here, including the cost per page for copies related to Open Records Act requests. Policy DFE was modified to increase some flexibility for districts in investing and where we place our money. It used to say specifically banks. Now it says financial institutions to create some additional flexibility. It also allows us now to take requests for proposals rather than simply bids, which is a significantly more restrictive and different process as far as where we place our funds. We made those changes for flexibility purposes. GAAB is the first of the complaint policies that are amended by the Title IX regulations. The most significant changes to these policies have to do with the way we define sexual harassment, sex discrimination, and how we handle the investigations upon complaints, specifically establishing 3 main positions for those investigations, which are the Title IX coordinator, the Title IX investigator, and the Title IX decision maker, all of whom work independently throughout that process. Again, GAAC is also modified based on those new Title IX changes. Please stop me if you have any questions about these. I know we discussed them at the last meeting, but if you have any additional concerns or questions, please let me know. GAAD, our child abuse policy regarding child abuse reporting, was amended to add the annual training requirement to the policy. We have been in the practice of providing reporting, training. It's just now memorialized in the policy itself. GAOC is also modified based on the recommendations of that vaping task force that I mentioned earlier and adopted by the State Department. It changed the definitions related to vaping products a bit, but by and large, the regulation remains the same. In HAE, we made a modification. It was suggested by KASB that we modify from agents to representatives, since it's a little bit more reflective of what the actual negotiating team does for the board. This is IC, a policy. We simply changed the title of executive director throughout the policy. IJ, evaluation of instructional program. We also changed the title here, but we shifted away from the use of the word shall here to may to make additional flexibility for administrators in the evaluation process. JBC was also a title update. JBC, also a title update. Also JBCD, title update. This modification to JBCB was an updated, not only to the title, but it actually removed principal from the approval process, leaving it up to the district executive director to make that determination. JCDAA, again, an update to the student policy related to tobacco-free experience on campus. JGEC, again, we modified the sexual harassment policy based on the Title IX requirements. This is the companion to GAF, which you just saw previously, which related to staff. This is now the student version of that policy. Again, the changes were pretty much consistent throughout. JQKA was modified to increase flexibility for the district in the admission of foreign exchange students. It used to say will, it now says may, and we've added language saying that it's to the extent that we have resources available for their admission at the time. KMA is the public policy version of the tobacco-free policy changes that relates. The K section of the policy handbook refers to our public policies. KN, again, this is the Title IX change for complaints for sexual harassment, sexual discrimination. Again, this policy specifically applies to members of the public. KNA, our final policy, is a new policy this year recommended based on the Title IX recommendations. The Federal Food Service Program believed that they needed to have identified a specific avenue for complaints related to child nutrition, and that's what is reflected here. And that is the last one for recommended amendment this year. Any questions?
Questions or comments on that review?
My only question would be, like it says, approved, reviewed, revised. Is there some clarity on, I understand, well, we reviewed it, but if we didn't revise it, then it just stays as reviewed?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And what does approved mean?
A new policy.
Okay, it's in the, okay, thank you. I just thought
Sure.
for mine, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion. Yes, sir. Mark,
I move we approve the board policy revisions as presented.
in a second.
Emma Doherty, second?
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Aaron, thank you for handling the riveting material in a nice summary way. You do a good job with it.
Next item on our action agenda, 6C busing agreement with Twin Valley School District with Chris Upson.
Good evening. I bring before you a busing agreement between Twin Valley School District and ourselves. This is a relatively long-standing agreement. The reason we have one is based on KSA 72-1046B, which requires us to have an agreement between school districts if those school districts want to travel inside of each other's school districts to pick up kids. This was revised last time to take into account the 2.5-mile rule for transportation. So this would have been 4+ years ago. It was revised and the boundaries were changed. We've had no issues and no issues with transportation. Those boundaries remain the same. We're trying to extend it for another 5 years to 2025. Are there any questions I can answer about it?
Yes.
I have a question. If I recall from the past, there are kids in our district that get bused to the Bennington district, but there are no kids in the Bennington district that get bused to our district. Is that still true?
I do not know the answer to that.
Oh,
I
okay.
can find out.
Right.
Any other questions? Someone want to make a motion? Mark, or Aaron?
Okay, just a second. Sorry, having trouble with my computer. I move that we approve the agreement with Twin Valley School District for another 5 years, to renew for 5 years, to run through 2025 as presented.
Thank you. In a second. Mark, thank you. Motion in a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Chris. And last item on our action agenda, item 6D, appointment of our 2020 KASB delegate and alternate for the delegate assembly. Ms. Exline.
Thank you. We always have the board nominate a delegate and an alternate to represent you at the KSB convention. That convention occurs in December each year, and at that time, they review policies and legislative platforms, and so that delegate and alternate would be the ones that would vote on your behalf. And so at this time, we would like for you to go ahead and determine who you would like those two positions to go to.
Okay.
Mr. President, I would
Yes.
like to say just that I was the representative last year, the delegate, excuse me, and it's not difficult. It just takes a little extra reading because I have the big, there's a book of legislative priorities for the KASB, and we make some changes and adjustments to that every year, so you have to read that carefully. So,
I nominate Gabe Grant.
Okay. Do we want a motion for a delegate and an alternate?
I propose Scott Gardner as the alternate.
Okay.
Do we have a I guess we need a motion to say those things, huh? And to see if they were willing to do it.
Yeah,
Emmett already second.
okay. Okay. Would you accept your nomination for that role? Well, yeah. Are you planning to attend that virtually? Yeah,
The delegate portion is on Sunday.
Sunday. After.
Chair, so it will not be on Sunday, it's Wednesday through Friday. I don't have the date of the delegate, though.
It is.
I have nothing of that yet.
Okay. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
President, I nominate Danica So as an alternate.
Okay,
I was planning on attending, so.
okay. Would someone make a motion to the effect of all of that happened?
I'll summarize it. Mr. President, I move that we appoint Gabe Grant as delegate and Danica So as alternate for the KSB Delegate Assembly for the KSB Annual Convention, December 2 through 4, 2020.
Thank you. In a second? Second by Scott. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. That motion carries 7-0. Thank you. That's it on our action agenda. Moving on to our discussion agenda for the evening. Item 7A, course proposals with Dr. Curtis Stevens. Hello, sir.
Hello, good evening. We'll start tonight off with the first proposal, environmental science, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Sheila Schaefer and Mr. Larry Nutter, both of the science departments, one from Central and one from South High, to come up and just share with you a little bit about this course proposal for environmental science. So if you want to come on up, you can.
Are you going to be showing anything on the screen?
I will for the second portion of my presentation.
Can we turn on the lights while it's not?
Good idea.
Certainly, we will make arrangements
You
for
need to
that.
unmute when you
Oh,
talk.
sorry. Forgot to unmute.
It's kind of nap time up here.
Well, I guess, what information would you like to know about the process of how we got here? Why we chose environmental science?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So this started, I would probably say 15 years ago, as a young teacher, talking with my mentor, Keith Smith, who's now a retired science teacher from Central. And the question was, I don't feel as though there's enough opportunities in the science realm for students, and why is that? And so that conversation continued on, and I decided to do some digging and asking students, why are you stopping after 3 years? Why aren't you taking another science class? And the conversation was, not really interested in anything. I just want to stop at 3. And then I progressed to, well, what classes would you take if there were the options? So I decided as a science person to actually collect data. So for 3 years, I asked juniors and seniors to tell me what classes they would like to take if they were offered at Celina in USD 305. And what kept percolating to the top was environmental science. Zoology and botany were a close second. And then I decided, well, how many kids at Central, because I think I know, but I don't really know, how many kids at Central are stopping after 3? And with just me taking my own data, looking at comparison of the science classes that I knew students had taken with my cohort of my team, looking and comparing, it was always around the 30% mark. So about 30% of the students at Central stopped after 3. And that bothered me because I feel, just as a science person, gosh, you should take 4 years. It's important. Science is essential. And when I look at our mission statement, of all the science classes, environmental science is what is necessary to participate successfully in the communities in which they're going to live in. If we look at legislation that just got passed in California, by 2035, we're supposed to have electric cars in California. Well, how do we get there? Politics are talking about the Green Deal. Well, what is that? And in order for our students to be successful participants, I feel that environmental science is a great option for them to choose. So that's how we got here. Anything I can answer?
I just wanted to say, I appreciate your initiative from taking this, starting from just an idea to a full-fledged class option for students, so thank you for doing that.
Sure. Do you have something you want to add?
No, I would just say this was a proposal that originated from Central, and it came to South, and we've kind of negotiated back and forth in terms of the vision for the course, and we've arrived at something that we feel very comfortable with. It is an elective. It does not interrupt the course sequence that we have of earth space biology and then either chemistry, physics, or physical science. So when they come to this course, they will be an upperclassman. They will have some knowledge and skills learned in those foundational courses, and we want to see them apply that then in some very practical ways in our community. So that's kind of the vision that we have arrived at and feel good about.
Very good. Other questions, comments?
I just thank you both for the initiative. It's a great idea, and it will be a great thing for our students, I feel, for sure.
Thank you both.
Okay, for the second portion of tonight's presentation on course proposals, we're going to start talking about a thing we're calling Polycats Academy. And CATS stands for the Center for Applied Technology Studies. And with this, I'm going to kind of review a roadmap here of what we're going to talk about in 3 parts, but they'll be very brief. The goals of our proposal, the background of USD 305 and Kansas State University's partnership, and then the Polycats Academy proposal, essentially what it is about and the basics. So the first part here is that Kansas State University, Polytechnic, and USD 305 started having some conversations, and our goal really, we saw some similarities as well, working with businesses across Celina, is to foster this idea of strong partnerships between business, community organizations, and educational institutions. And as you see up there, a variety of employers and their network with Kansas State University, Polytechnic, as well as with USD 305. So part of the goal of this collaboration is really to build and enhance and foster the development between those 3 entities. The second goal of the proposal is to expand this notion of opportunities for all USD 305 students to earn an industry-recognized credential, have the opportunity to gain dual credit for both high school and college, and pursue an associate's degree while in high school. The second part here I want to break down just a little bit is our current background with 305. Right now, we basically offer a blended class that is team taught on USD 305 campus, and the professor in the past has been Troy Harding, has worked with business teachers and teaching a computer principles class, kind of a programming class, and that is offered second semester. And it's called blended credit because it is a USD 305 staff member and a Kansas State University professor, and they're on our campus. So again, it's offered at Central and South. The second aspect of our partnership right now includes 36 dual credit elective offerings. Again, courses that are taught by Kansas State University professor at KSU campus, and it's permitted for elective credit. And the 36 are in our enrollment guide, and basically those have been added for several years now. So the Polycats Academy proposal really adds a different element. And the first part of that is that students would be allowed to take core classes at Kansas State University. So for English, math, science, and social studies for both USD 305 and Kansas State University credit. In the simplest form, that's basically a new thing. 305 and Kansas State University dual credit electives would also, under this proposal, expand from 36 to 102 courses. And our students would be able to, for the first time, earn an associate's degree from Kansas State University Polytechnic while they are also in high school by the time they graduate, if everything kind of lined up with the individual plan of study. There are three major areas that this expansion of courses would provide our students. And the first one is industry recognized credential, as our second goal indicated, and dual credits for general education requirements, as well as dual credits for an associate's degree. So if you kind of think in those three areas. And to kind of give a breakdown of what that looks like, we have industry recognized credentials in applied manufacturing, aviation maintenance, composites repair, and the introduction to unmanned aircraft systems technology. And so those are the three areas that some of the industry recognized credentials would branch out of. When you think of like our KISA goals for a district, and you look at the national clearinghouse data, some of these items would align, some of them wouldn't, but the bottom line is that students would be able to have that certificate that is recognized by area employers. The 18 new credits for high school and college credit would fall into these core areas: English language arts and communication. So if you really think about composition 1, composition 2, speech, mathematics, science, social sciences, and business electives. And I know that in the course offerings and the listing there, they're in alphabetical order, but the required ones with the descriptions fall into those different categories. There would also be 52 new dual credits for electives, much like the 36 we currently have, that would lead to an associate's degree. And the associate's degrees would fall into these three general areas, but also the subcategories are associate's degrees themselves: aviation maintenance, unmanned aircraft systems, applied business, web development, and under engineering, electrical engineering technology, and mechanical engineering technology. And these are high demand areas that our area employers are seeking qualified and skilled labor in, but also they can transfer easily into a 4-year program should a student choose to do that. The benefits of the Polycats Academy is that it does support students with this difficult transition to career and college after high school by getting them exposure to those types of courses, but also working with them through that transition while they are at home under the roof of their parents, while they are attending high school in their own community, to push themselves and to take some college credit courses. It also gives us a wider course selection, and with that, as you can see, from 36 to 102 different electives. And the best part of this is when you're looking at a discounted rate of tuition, $120 per credit hour, which if you examine it now per class, it's about $500 discount for every class that they take. And then perhaps the other added bonus to this, when you're thinking of that goal number 1 with fostering community organizations and businesses in our educational institutions, is they do have that opportunity to network with area employers. So that's a very broad kind of whole discussion of it. I'm sure you have questions, and inside the course listings, there's a lot of specific details on what is what for the course, et cetera. But I want to take some general questions now, and hopefully I can help answer those as we move forward. Dr. Vander?
This is all great stuff. I think it's an exciting time. My only question is, as somebody who works as a college registrar, I'm accustomed to seeing Celina students with credits from Celina Tech and Hutch Community College, which those are great. I think their per credit hour might even beat the 120 in some cases. Will students be able to cross-register at different schools? Like if a student wanted to take their core English, general psych, those kind of things at Celina Tech, for example, and then take some classes in this program, will they be able to do both?
Nothing at this point in the proposal would exclude them from doing that. As we develop it and kind of work through the course document descriptions, et cetera, we'll have to figure that out. But on Celina Area Tech, many of those classes do transfer already to K-State University as well as Emporia and Fort Hays. And so nothing in this proposal would keep a student from taking a Celina Area Tech class, nor would it from Hutch Community College at this point.
I just want to make sure students have exposure to the place they want to go. And I think these are all great. I have no argument with it. I just don't want to limit their ability to shop, as it were.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I just have a question. As a parent who had 3 students who took classes at K-State and Hutch, I would say, somewhat difficult to get those transcripts sent to the colleges they went to. And I want to make sure that we make that easier on people and make sure that that's set up so that if a child can't handle it, a parent can call. Because I think on 2 of them, I had to end up going out there, and I'd just like to make that process as smooth as possible.
And as a former principal of the building, I can assure you, I want that as smooth as well, especially when it comes to articulation agreements. There's over 165 of them across the state, and trying to keep everybody up to date and get that information is critical. And it also is showing the vital role that this district has played with individual plans of study and why it's so much more important to have that stuff together. That definitely is something, I've written that down as we would work through the details to make it clear that transition also has to help, not only just getting them to a college level class, but getting that to transcript over to that 4-year institution and the high school.
Thank you.
I can weigh in on that too, that both Celina Tech and Hutch, every place I know of, has gone to where and the students just need to be instructed on this. They have an electronic link. Like at Hutch, they have to log into their Dragon Zone account, and there's an online transcript request form. They fill in the blank, pay $8, and off they go. And I assume Celina Tech is pretty similar. So all it would mean, Dr. Stevens, is some kind of a one-pager to hand out on the first day of a dual credit class to request your transcript by doing blah, and it'd be pretty easily solved.
Yeah, and the tighter the nexus is between that organization as we work through that on scheduling, all of those things, it helps it make it a little bit easier too for courses being selected if we know when they're offered because they have a guaranteed set in their schedule. So I think that's what comes with that partnership to make it just a little bit more effective, efficient, and require less effort on everybody's part, including the parent who's trying to get their kid that credit. Mrs. Emmerman?
Couple things. First, what is an articulation agreement?
Yeah, it's
what
great,
does
great
that mean?
question. We'll start with that. An articulation agreement is basically an agreement from, it can be from any organization, educational organization. KSDE has 165 of them online. I've read through most of them. And they have all kinds of things that basically if a high school student follows a pathway, much like the pathways we have in our course description, we've been very robust in our IPS and making sure students know if you complete these courses in a pathway, you get credit. I was sitting in a training, I think Mrs. Exline offered it, it's been a number of years ago, but as I was learning about this, I found one particular student at South High, for example, who was getting ready to enroll in a class and found out she doesn't have to take that because she completed a pathway. And because all of the work with our curriculum and our programs department, we've been able to align a lot of those pathways. So if a student completes a certain amount of course sequences at the high school, they could have a variety of things in these articulation agreements. One, college credit coming to them that they have to pay for, but they don't have to sit in the class. Two, they don't have to pay for it, and they don't have to take it. Or three, that they are allowed a certain avenue to an expedited type of course sequence that they have it. So it's very complicated. It's why we have to have those professional counselors do their job as well as they do. But on the KSD website, they're listed, and they're from junior colleges, 4-year colleges, and also know that an articulation agreement could be USD 305 in this partnership with KSU. So it's kind of a wide variety of different topics and items. Any other questions?
I might just add to Ann's question too, that a number of community colleges have articulation agreements with 4-year schools, and in these cases, like the classes that our students would be able to take, they allow them to go from a partnership of finishing at a 2-year school and having those hours guaranteed to transfer to the 4-year school, no questions asked. Like, for example, Bethany has one with Hutchinson that takes students in digital media into a digital arts program, guaranteed of everything transferring, and off you go. So it isn't just to the state schools, it's all across the country that these partnerships work out in a really great way. So it's a win for our students in every sense.
And I'd be more than happy to share a link with you so you can see the complexities of it, but also the awesome opportunities that we have for our students because we have those pathways in place. Any other questions?
My question, I guess, I think it's a great program. I love the ability to do it. I'm just wanting to make sure that all of our students have access to it, and that's the concern that I have in the question probably. I guess if funding becomes an issue, I understand at Celina Tech, our relationship there, a student attends, there's no cost unless they don't academically pass, and then there's a fee assessed. Are there scholarship opportunities? Are there things to help students who maybe don't have the $360 to complete the class to still have access.
So in terms of like a Senate Bill 155 that pays for technical education credits like with Celina Area Tech, we don't have that from the state, like state funding. But in terms of scholarship opportunities, we just started with one small one last year. We're one of the organizations in town kind of called it a micro scholarship for the first one. And my answer to that would be right now widespread no. But as we develop this and as we get more partnerships, especially with area employers, I think that's going to be an opportunity that helps gain more access and make it more equitable for our students.
Any questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Stevens.
Thank you.
Moving on with school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. Thursday, November 12th, the Smoky Hill Education Service Center Legislative Luncheon. That's held this year. Note the location change at Trinity United Methodist Church at 9:30 a.m. And the KSB Annual Convention held virtually December 2nd through 4th, which we now know to be a Wednesday through Friday.
Yeah.
Not the dates we were assuming
Thank
they
you,
were.
Deborah.
So thank you, Deborah. Any school board reports, starting with Mark down there?
So since the last time we had opportunity to make reports, I've attended 2 Zoom board meetings for the Smoky Hill Education Consortium. I'd learned about that a little bit from Miss Emma, so thank you for the advance warning, but they've really been interesting to attend. I don't know if anybody else has had the opportunity, but basically with these Zoom things, there's been 3 staff members, and each time 5 of us that are board members, and basically these are board members from other surrounding school districts that are part of the consortium. The only person that's been there both times with me is the gentleman from Celina, but Palco, Plainville, Concordia, Wakanda have been represented. So the interesting thing there, Chapman I should say too, these are much smaller districts that we're coming together with. And they just do a really nice job spending time where each of the school districts reports. So I report, thus far they've only been about COVID things, which people have been frustrated with, but we learn more what the other districts are doing with COVID. It was interesting to hear the gentleman from Chapman talk about the 2 weeks when they had to go entirely remote learning because of the issues there. So those have been good things to learn. If you haven't heard, the Crawford Street offices of the consortium have been quite renovated recently. So we've seen some pictures and slides of the new things there. I've heard people speak in the past about this isn't a very comfortable place to go for meetings. The pictures on the slideshow make it look there's been a lot of improvement, so I'm excited about that. They've also made some work on the Hayes offices, so I'm not sure anybody's been there, but lots of great things. Just like USD 305, Smoky Hill has been applying for a lot of COVID-related grants, federal things, and from what Mr. Monomog reports, been receiving most of them. While there's always shaky things about the budget, these additional grants have helped, and they're serving people, serving our teachers in a wide variety of ways. So there's a lot I don't know yet, but it's been good to participate, and I think they're doing a great job from all I can see.
Thank you.
I attended the unveiling of the activity bus and got to talk to the student who designed it, Carlin Breckheisen, and that was fun to see, and she described her process a little bit, and there's a point where the cougar claws go out over the wheel well or some kind of bump in the bus, and she said she planned that for that to be there. So it was really interesting to kind of see how it fit. And I think on one side, the Mustang is toward the front and the Cougar's toward the back. On the other side, the Cougar's toward the front and the Mustang's toward the back. So she put a lot of thought into that. I attended Equity Council, and we did a preview of the presentation that Jane Elliott is going to do pretty soon, who did the blue eye, brown eye discrimination game that she made up the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, because they had just celebrated him as a hero of the month in February, and then in April he had been assassinated, and she tried to make her all-white students understand how it would feel to be discriminated against for something you have no control over. And so she made up a theory that said that if you have blue eyes, it lets in too much UV light and fries your brain a little bit, so that's why the blue-eyed people were not as smart as the brown-eyed people. And they treated the kids that way all day, and And the kids were traumatized, but, I mean, the blue-eyed kids, but what I never knew, I've heard of this for a long time, but what she talks about in this video is that her parents lost their business, and her children were spit on and by the people because they didn't like the fact that she was defending African Americans, and it was life-changing that she said she probably wouldn't have done it if she'd known that was going to happen. But anyway, she's quite a character, and I'll be interested to see the presentation she's going to make to the district. I also attended this the Celina area, let me try again, the Celina Adult Education Center Advisory Board meeting. And they are still almost all remote. They do have their building open every day because some students have trouble doing the remote, but almost all their staff is remote, and they are still carrying on and getting almost everything done. They have the Partners for Success program that they had to stop a new term of that, which was supposed to start right when shutdown started, and they haven't continued that because it is so in-person, hands-on, face-to-face, trying to get adults with a lot of hurdles in the way of their employment, teaching them how to interview and how to write a resume and many other things. Anyway, that's where they are, and so they're still remote and carrying on pretty well.
Thank you. Dana?
I haven't had nearly as busy schedule. I just attended a regional roundtable last Wednesday with other local board members in the state of Kansas, where we broke out into small groups and discussed what everybody's discussing, which is COVID for the most part.
Very good. Jim?
So we had our mini retreat. I attended that along with everyone else. That was a great day. The Celina Adult Education meeting, just a kind of some unique stats there. The DCP program is out there, and over the summer, they had 10 students complete the diploma completion program out there. 4 of those were Central High students, and 6 were from South, so those will be counted in our graduation completion rate for the year. They're still going virtual. They've got 53 participants in the first quarter and 56 for first quarter of next year lined up. So they're going strong. And then the roundtable, which was very nice it's always nice to get on those and hear board members from other communities and the challenges that they have that we're very blessed that our staff takes care of for us. I would put that out there. So thank you for the leadership and the work that all the staff does for us.
Thank you. Sir?
I also did the mini retreat that was virtual, and I agreed. It's almost to the point where you don't want to say anything because you don't want to make the other districts feel bad. But it's almost like we don't have any problems, and they have the world falling down on them. So it was interesting. I enjoyed listening to that. With Heartland, I had 3 meetings with them. They elected their officers. They do have some openings, so if you know anybody that needs their services, they're available. They're also looking at how they can improve on what they're offering and how to make contact with more people. And then also we had a truancy board meeting here, and that went well as well.
Thank you.
I attended the mini retreat of the board, like all of you did, and it was very interesting and exciting to work on our mission and vision statement. And then also attended the round table, and I agree with everybody that it's really unique that the different things that are accomplished and handled by all the school districts, and we're blessed to have what we have. So did appreciate that very, very much. And that's all.
Thank you. Also attended the board retreat, Parks and Rec Advisory Board meeting. I don't think anything to report there. Central Kansas Cooperative and Education Board of Control meeting. Just discussions about ongoing COVID adjustments and all of those things going on in the member districts, and attended the chamber board meeting in September on behalf of this organization. We received a presentation on the Celina County Jail project that will be on the ballot on November 3rd. I believe that was it. On to the superintendent's report with Superintendent Exline.
Thank you. Just want to update you on a couple things that Equity Council has been doing. We've been hard at work. We did bring in the Roots of Justice training. We did a 2.5-day training with all of our building level administrators, and we had some additional support staff that were able to participate in that training. A great 2.5 days learning about systemic racism, and just kind of getting to know a different frame of reference for us, a different lens for us to think through when we are trying to address equity issues. That training we are going to bring back this summer for expanded groups, but we had a really good 2.5 days of discussion. And then I also want to give a shout out to Tiffany Lowe. She's here in the back of the room. But she has been working, she's actually helping chair that committee this year, and she has been doing some ongoing training with our classified staff. You'll recall that last year we did 6 mini sessions with all certified staff members, and Tiffany has taken that out and is training our classified staff members with that same information to try to bring them up to speed and be having the same conversations with them. In addition, she has been partnering with the building level Equity Council representatives to do that, which has been a really positive way for them to get involved and show leadership at the building level and use some of what we've been talking about on the council. And then finally, she also went and has done multiple sessions with the Central Kansas Cooperative and Education Administrators. And so they have now been included in that same training that we did last spring with all staff. The second thing that I wanted to share with you is that I did do a teacher Zoom last Friday to talk to them a little bit about things that are upcoming. We're really trying to communicate with them and include them in decision making, and so those Zoom sessions have been really a positive way for me to reach out and actually work directly with teachers. I enjoy that. I enjoy hearing directly from them so that I can understand their concerns and support them better. And then finally, just a call for if you know anyone who is looking for a CNA type nursing position, we are needing some additional support for our nurses out in our buildings. Their jobs have changed dramatically with COVID-19, and so if there is any, we are looking for some people out of our ESSER funds, Sparks funds, to be able to help in that way, and so send them our direction if you can. But other than that, I do want you to know I will be out of the district tomorrow. We have Council of Superintendents in Dodge City, and then we also have a Kansas Superintendents Association legislative meeting, and I'm going to talk to them about looking at advocating for some Senate Bill 155 money. Is there a way that we can start promoting that for four-year schools? And I think as a superintendent's organization, that would be a great place for us to start putting some effort to open up some doors for students. So thank you. I don't know who it was that asked the question, but for that idea today. So that'll be Thursday morning is when that conversation will take place. So.
Very good.
I have a question. What's the help we need for the school nurses or for?
Right.
But
our school nurses, with the challenges that are being presented with COVID-19, our school nurses' jobs have changed dramatically. And so we are looking to try to add a nurse assistant in each building to be able to support and help them. When contact tracing begins, it really does it becomes the job. And we are working really hard in partnership with the Celina County Health Department, but that really does change how we need to use that nursing support at times. And so we're looking for CNAs to support them. So.
Thank you. Moving on, we do have an executive session on our agenda for attorney-client. There's a motion in the agenda packet. If someone would like to make that, I'd request 25 minutes. First one to scroll.
I got it.
Yes, ma'am.
I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at, should I say 6:45? Or should I do it
25.
sooner? For 25 minutes for the purpose of consultation with board legal counsel to discuss the Schilling environmental litigation, which is privileged in the attorney-client relationship, which if discussed in open session would waive that privilege, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 7:10 in the board conference room.
Thank you. In a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried 7-0. We will take a short recess before this executive session at 6:45. We'll come back into this room to adjourn the meeting and present any formal action to take place based on that executive. In this room, again, we'll come back in here to end the meeting, and we'll end the streaming online at that I'll call our meeting back to order here in open session. Is there a motion based on our executive session?
Mr. President, I should say, recently, the Celina Public Entities reached a settlement agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regarding the environmental contamination at the former Schilling Air Force Base. In anticipation of court approval of the settlement and subsequent implementation of the environmental response activities, I move that we approve the project management agreement governing the administration of that environmental response between the four public entities, Celina public entities.
Well said. Is there a second? Mr. Bandre, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. That is the end of our agenda. Thank you all for joining us online, and those warriors that stuck around with us here in the room. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I move that we adjourn.
Amador, second?
Thank you, and thank you. I've got a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all. Have a great evening.